YouTube and Patreon friendly. Recently, respectfully, Sargon of Akkad, a noted pundit of internet drama, turned politician as well as Monkey Jones is a meme lord, were thrown off of YouTube in Monkey Jones's case, as well as Sargon of Akkad was removed from Patreon. Now, there's a lot of talk about collusion between major companies like YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Patreon. And why there are cases like, say, InfoWars, a controversial news medium that used to be featured on YouTube, being deplatformed across several avenues, gives that theory some credence, and certainly some concern. Sometimes in instances like Sargon of Akkad and Monkey Jones's, it's just possible, right or wrong, for better or for worse. I do think that those mediums did just get fed up with Sargon and Monkey respectively. I'm going to explain why this might be understandable at first, and secondly why this is total bullshit. Sargon of Akkad, or Carl Benjamin, would have you think that the only people who complain about him are social justice warriors.
Unfortunately, Twitter aren't wise to these fifth-dimensional genius discourse moves and briefly suspended his account, citing a violation of Twitter's rules of conduct regarding abusive behavior. Wait, Twitter has those? Well, if it does, it clearly has too many. If a man with hundreds of thousands of followers can't send unsolicited pornography to people, we're basically living in a social studies warrior dystopia.
The more you look into Sargon of Akkad, you can surely find behavior that, at best, is distasteful.
The R word is the same as every minority slur.
Oh, well, great job trivializing minority slurs.
BitChute, BitChute, BitChute. And undesirable to downright sickening.
Himself rather than other people. And his response to that is that, criticism applies to Dankula and not him. I don't know why he's throwing Dankula under the bus.
Sargon being deplatformed from Patreon, I don't necessarily sympathize with him either. One of the things that has annoyed me is that Sargon tries to portray himself as some kind of free speech martyr, as if he hasn't tried to use tech corporations and media to silence his own critics. Not only did he laugh at the deplatforming of the kill stream, leading to 27k in charity being cancelled, but he also has openly targeted Andy Warski's channel with the Wall Street Journal and has openly supported people targeting Andy Warski's channel and trying to take him down. And that's not even getting into the fact that he tagged the FBI while accusing Andy of being a potential school shooter, potentially putting him in trouble with actual secret services, and is something that could lead to swatting.
I understand this is the internet, and YouTube is a pretty cutthroat place. People do what they do to get ahead. But this is a man who puts on an air of well-being and enlightenment, cynical and level-headed. And it's possible, as Carl/Sargon might have overextended himself from well over, 3 YouTube channels? It's, if not his more public speakings or his court cases, and throwing his hat into the political arena, that one could make excuses that some of Sargon of Akkad's hiccups might be understandable, but there seems to be a steady reign of embarrassing and undesirable behavior that's increased as Carl's face has become more and more public.
He uses these things, at least it appears to me, as a form of ego enforcement, rather than because he believes it's a just thing.
Right, that's right, Jim. That's right. I've chosen to do this because not just because it makes me great, because it boosts my ego. It's not that I would rather be making my video games, it's that I would be rather...
Sargon, what video games are you making?
Carl has given enough reason, if you look at his actions as a whole, to give his ass the boot off of Patreon. However, with every pro there are typically some cons. This is Tim Pool. He has well over 200,000 subscribers and has a strong presence on YouTube and has what you might call an alternative to mainstream news. I've seen a handful of his videos, and I can't speak for every last one, but from what limited I've seen they're just fine. If Tim is to be believed, Sargon was kicked, and only kicked, for saying the N-word.
The issues I am going to be raising today are not necessarily about Sargon himself, but about the hypocrisy and the problems and the risks of the platform. So first, let me just clarify one more time before I tell you what happened on this phone call and why I'm really upset. They banned Sargon of Akkad from Patreon, and what they told me was that in a video he did about 10 months ago, it was a live stream, He was on someone else's channel who had, I believe, about 3,500 subscribers, and he referred to people. My initial understanding was that he was referring to people that he said were, you know, alt-right, and he was referring to them as white N-word. And
you are acting like a bunch of
BitChute.
Just so you know, you act like.
And that's it. For myself, Mr. Meokur, Digibro, and oodles of other people on Patreon, we've all uttered the N-word on respectively other videos. I kind of feel that this is a double down from YouTube, as MundaneMatt has openly admitted to doing so with a hand puppet back in the day.
My word today is
BitChute. MundaneMatt, I assure you, is still on Patreon. Sargon's offense wasn't even on his channel, and yet Patreon booted him. I also want to point out that YouTube is taking a stricter stance on the N-word on its platform. This is downright laughable when you consider Django Unchained is on YouTube. Django Unchained supposedly holds the record for any movie to have said the N-word throughout any movie, and it's clearly on YouTube. Now I know what you're going to say. FNGR, there are major motion picture companies behind those. You can clearly see that these are put behind paywalls. Like it or not, these companies are given a special privilege. And that's somewhat fair, whether I like it or not, I can at least understand. Columbia Pictures, or rather, what's this? The Weinstein Company. The same company that was founded by Harvey Weinstein, is a gentleman who's had over 100 accusers come forward against him. But let's not nitpick people. It is still, after all, a multi-million-dollar company, and I'm sure Susan Wachowski, the head CEO of YouTube, has to do what's right for business. Oh wait, there's 3 videos here of Django Unchained, whole and uncut, with no effort made to make these free use, and they're hosted on YouTube. Let's keep moving. Look, YouTube is vast. It's a giant medium. Oh wait, if you look here, the title of this video literally says the N-word in the title of the YouTube video. So a movie that was distributed by the world's worst 6 degenerate in Hollywood, or at least someone who's in the running, breaking something YouTube is going around policing, that's okay. Whether it makes money for the company that's behind it or not. GG YouTube, GG. I couldn't help but notice this other remark from Tim Pool's channel.
If what Milo said is true, when he posted this, he said that he was banned because the message he received said your association with the Proud Boys, even though you disavowed them. There's 2 problems there. Even though you disavowed them, you just opened up a whole new can of worms, Patreon.
Milo Yiannopoulos was banned not only from YouTube, but Patreon as well. With Patreon saying Milo Yiannopoulos was removed from the platform for the company he kept, even though he's no longer associated with these so-called undesirables. Well, again, Patreon is a business like any other run by Jack Conte. It does, in fact, have to do what's right for business. I can understand the pragmatism of that. This is Kiro the Wolf. If you've seen my channel, you likely know who this is already. I'm not going to play the clip here from this gentleman over here, explaining how Kiro admitted that there are chat logs where Kiro confessed to having sex about him and his dog having sex, and that dog subsequently dying. Kiro the Wolf is a patron, and he is a YouTuber as of today. Kiro the Wolf, and this is the part more regarding Patreon, is friends with such people as Sanjay Naitavis, who is a convicted felon who has a unhealthy, illegal fixation with children. Kiro the Wolf is also friends and associate with Snake Thing, aka Levi Simmons, who has expressed an unhealthy fixation on 2 of his underage cousins, and the police have even talked to the man. And there are records of people on YouTube confirming Levi was at least in custody by the police. Kiro the Wolf is friends with Wolf, aka Ruben Marrero Pernez. Wolf is currently sitting inside of a Cuban jail cell, according to reports from at least 2 news articles, for the murder of 1 dog and the sexual assault of 2 others. Wolf's acts include taking a dog apart while sexually violating it. He is Kirill the Wolf's friend. Kirill the Wolf is YouTube and Patreon friendly. Susan Wachowski and Jack Conte must clearly feel this way, or else he wouldn't be on both mediums. Or perhaps this is much like Daddy05 and how that took several months and months until they finally fixed that issue. A channel famous for having hundreds of videos online of parents beating their kids for clicks. This, of course, due to Susan Wachowski's policing and morality, is morally a-okay. Kirill the Wolf's money, reasonably, could be suspected that this could be going towards him buying further animals that would be potentially subsequently sexually exploited. Money that would likely derive from Google AdSense that YouTube provides, as well as Patreon dollars. I originally talked to other concerned YouTubers and furries who expressed an interest in reporting Kirill on Patreon, and I remember saying, I'm not sure Kirill the Wolf is breaking anything in Patreon's terms of service. I would like to apologize, as clearly I have no idea what Patreon's policies are in this matter. I'm not suggesting that Sargon of Akkad isn't some fat, bloviating windbag, but I am suggesting he is a better human being than a dog-murdering animal rapist. I think I would have been fine if Patreon would have just said, we don't like the following people. Or perhaps they would have made the statement, well, as long as Kirill the Wolf doesn't have a Make America Great hat on, he'll be okay with us. As long as Kirill the Wolf respects all human races, his business is okay with YouTube or Patreon. And at long last, we get to Monkey Jones, who was kicked off of YouTube for being, I could only assume, being edgy, because YouTube's brand, like it or not, just wasn't interested in supporting a memester like Monkey Jones. I will admit Monkey Jones's sense of humor and style isn't for me, but I gotta say this, and I feel we should point to this right here.
However, I will say this, Digibro. I don't know if this is accurate because I don't know the terminology of like anime shit, but you are self-professed, what is it, lolicon fan?
Yes.
Does that mean that, what does that mean?
It means that I am a huge fan of illustrations of little girls getting fucked.
Oh. Now, oh, see, that makes it, you see what you, when you do that,
yeah,
it makes it very uncomfortable.
Of course it does. But like, I have to fight for that shit harder than anybody because I like that shit. And if I'm not doing anything wrong and I'm looking at the shit, that means I gotta be on the front fucking line.
Now, I'm not gonna get into the tired old argument of whether what Digi is or isn't into should constitute child pornography. That's an old, ugly argument that never leads anywhere. Now, whether you're on Patreon with Jack Chiante or YouTube with Susan Wachowski, I've gotta ask, Digi knows his way around the N-word.
Anyway, like, if I wanted to sit there and just, like, spam the word nigger all day on my Tumblr and that was it, like, every post was the word nigger, I'd probably lose a couple hundred followers and I wouldn't care. Like,
it'd be so worth it, though.
Digi supports content that is against YouTube's terms of service. Hell, he's tweeted it at you guys on Patreon, on Twitter. Like, no one even has to report him. He straight up screamed it in your face. Now, am I suggesting that Digibro should be thrown off of Patreon? I have no idea on what is and against of Patreon's terms of service if we take how Sargon of Akkad was judged. I also don't understand what is A-OK if we can look at people like Kirill the Wolf continually being on the medium. But for a man who's on the front fucking line for illustrations of children getting fucked, and I quote, that Patreon heard this and went, yeah, we're okay with this guy being here, but not Sargon. To anyone who's black in the audience, I'm going to lay it down to you like this. Do you feel safer and more respected that the priority in the moral order put in place in YouTube or in Patreon? I understand respect, but being allowed to feel like an equal human being, it is an important thing. It's something worth fighting for. But how do you feel about two companies protecting your potential mental well-being, and that is being weaponized to enforce something selectively so that two major companies can pick off those who might hurt their bottom line, and they're masquerading it as morality. I'm not saying I'm surprised for YouTube. We've all known that YouTube has been the Bethesda of social media websites, where at best, at your very best, your fans have tried to excuse your screw-ups as charming, whether you're promoting people beating their kids or doing God knows what to animals, or bravely expanding the rights of artistic expression on the sexualization of children. YouTube can bravely say that they were there first. However, in Patreon's case, I can remember towards the beginning. I can remember when you used to be cool. I remember when Patreon used to be on the front line and in a meaningful way. And it supported artists and political pundits and musicians and animators and critics and comedians. And slowly but surely, it's become enclosed as the Just Us Club, where if you're the wrong kind of person and you do the wrong kind of fuck up, you're gone. It's a real shame that those are the way things are going. I'm looking forward to being thrown off of the platform. That is, if you can get off your ass to do it. Thank you. Fuck you. Bye.
With me noting I am bleeding patrons because of the Sargon banning and offering to soothe my concerns. And second, I arranged this call with someone named Maria from Patreon's Trust and Safety team, but when I joined the call, I was surprised to see it wasn't Maria who was there. Instead, it was Jacqueline Hart, the author of the disastrous double down statement defending the Sargon banning. In arranging this conversation, I invited anyone from Patreon to live stream with me so that you guys could hear their explanation for yourself. But they ignored that request, and when Jacqueline started speaking, it's clear why they did. She insisted repeatedly that nobody record this conversation. She made me pledge I was not recording as a condition of having this conversation, and so for legal reasons, I definitely did not record this conversation. But I did transcribe this conversation with some help. That transcript is linked atop the description. You are free to read it at your desire.